Screen time is the new pandemic, without question. We don't have the visual skills and abilities as humans to handle what so much of us are doing all day long, staring at screens. And at least in America, the average American spends 7 hours and 4 minutes a day on a screen, and the average 8 to 10-year-old spends 6 hours a day on a screen. And
Six
if you could,
hours for a
6 hours,
child. What is
right?
that going to do? What is that going to do to our
I
children?
mean, we already are now learning what it is doing. It's creating a whole generation of kids with social problems, emotional problems, cognitive problems, but of course, vision problems now as well. Myopia or nearsightedness, far away being blurry, is often because of a near problem. The three biggest risk factors for myopia developing: excessive screen time, not enough time outdoors, and prolonged near concentration tasks in the dark. So we're having myopia explode across the world because of screens. Evolutionarily, our visual system was designed to guide movement and to track the horizon for the saber-toothed tiger coming at us. Now we're making these careful eye movements on screens with the brightness, the contrast, the glare, the sporadic, less organized eye movements, and it's causing a lot of stress and problems that most people don't know there are solutions for.
Welcome back to the Charlène and Dr show. If you are one of our new listeners, I'm so happy that you've joined us. And if you are one of our loyal listeners tuning in every Wednesday, I'm so happy to have you back. I would love to ask you for a quick favor. If you find today's conversation fascinating and you'll learn a lot of it and you get strategies and tips, please do leave us a review. It really helps to grow the show, and make sure that you've subscribed. On that note, I would like to introduce you to today's guest. I've had a fascinating conversation with Dr. Bryce Appelbaum, who is an eye care specialist and focuses on improving vision through a holistic whole body approach to eye health. Dr. Appelbaum is a pioneer in the field of eye health, and he has developed programs to retrain the brain to improve eyesight and performance. I first came across his work while exploring ways to optimize my eyesight, and maybe like many of you, I have abused and neglected it for years through extensive use of screen and not really looking at any ways I could improve my eyesight. Dr. Appelbaum has been featured in major outlets such as USA Today, CBS, and the New York Times magazines. He has also shared the stage with industry leaders like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Marie Forleo. His expertise in helping individuals recover from traumatic brain injuries and helping those looking to elevate their visual performance has now reached global status. Today, we'll dive into super interesting topics like neuro-optometry, how vision therapy can treat visual dysfunction, and explore ways you can retrain the brain to enhance visual performance. And if you want to optimize your eyesight and take care of your eyes from today onward, I would love to invite you to make sure you stay tuned and listen to the end of this conversation, where I share an exclusive gift for you. Dr. Bryce Appelbaum, I am so excited to have you on the show, and today we are going to talk about our eyes. Welcome.
I love it. Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here and excited to connect together.
Likewise, I have to say, one of the reasons I really wanted to speak with you is I have become familiar to the amazing work that you do and your program as well. And I also have a bit of a personal interest in eyesight and eye vision, because when I was little, I actually had an operation, and I've been battling vision troubles my whole life since then. I was only 3 years old and I fell from my parents' Range Rover, of all things. And when I woke up after the injury, it turned out that I had what's called strabism. So my eyes were really in bad shape, and what I was told at the time is that operating a 3-year-old girl is really, really difficult because I hadn't grown yet. And the alternatives was operation, which was really tricky, or letting me be like that. And I couldn't see well. And my mom says that that's actually formed a lot of my stubbornness and type A personality, because I was very, very strong about it. And I do have, as much as you can, vague memories of not seeing well for a few years of my childhood. And eyes is a topic that's very close and near to my heart due to that. So I thought I would share that story.
I am so sorry that happened. I have so much to share just on your story. Did you did have eye muscle surgery? You did have the
I
strabismus
did.
surgery?
I did. And it was really successful.
Okay.
But back, we're talking, nearly 33 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's certainly not as advanced as it is now. And my parents really had to push for it. So we had to go and
Yeah.
travel to a specialist eye clinic. And the one thing that I remember, if I can say that, obviously 3 years old, things are quite blurry, is just having those really black goggles because
Mm-hmm.
of the worry of me scratching my eyes out or anything.
Yeah.
And then when I woke up, before my eyes got back together, we used to have one bird in the cage, and I told my mom, "Oh, we have two now," and she's like, "Oh God, that did not
Uh-oh.
work well."
Yeah. So strabismus is the medical term for an eye turn.
Yes.
And in almost every case, a strabismus has nothing to do with the strength or the length of the eye muscles. It has to do with coordination and a brain problem, and the brain not using the eyes together as a team. And yet, so often, even now, 33 years later, the medical system treats a strabismus as if it is a eye muscle strength or length issue and does recommend some type of surgery, when in fact we know that the brain has the ability to develop the pathways and the neuroplasticity to allow the eyes to work together as a team. And for you, you
Mm.
had a head injury, and after the head injury, we had this fragile coordination after. If we can think about eyesight and vision as separate entities, and we can go into that, but vision is really brain and how the brain is using the information the eyes are sending it. And after a head injury, it's impossible not to have vision impacted. It's just a matter about what level. And so from that, you literally were using your visual system in your eyes a different way than your brain was wired. And it
Mm.
was, the treatment was a reactive approach, which it sounds like was successful, thank goodness. But there are so many kids, adults of all ages now struggling unnecessarily because of really the wrong treatment at the wrong time in their development. So
Mm.
grateful that you are doing well, and but that's scary, and so much can happen, when we're using our brain differently than it is wired.
Yeah, I do have to say that it's left me with perhaps a lingering sensitivity, which I think is a blessing. I used to think of it as a curse, but it's made me
Mm-hmm.
hyper aware of my screen usage, and it's made me very mindful of it because my eyes really don't love that very much. So any day that is over the 4 or 5 hours mark, my eyes don't like it. And I've learned the sort of 20 20 20 rule, 20 minutes, 20 feet, 20. And I apply this because I know that otherwise I feel this banging headache or migraine, and that
Yeah.
usually comes from my eyes.
Screen time is the new pandemic, without question. And we don't have the visual skills and abilities as humans to handle what so much of us are doing all day long, staring at screens. And at least in America, the average American spends 7 hours and 4 minutes a day on a screen.
Mm.
And the average 8 to 10-year-old spends 6 hours a day on a screen. And
Six
if you get
hours for a
6 hours,
child. What is
right?
that going to do? What is that going to do to our
I
children?
mean, we already are now learning what it is doing. It's creating a whole generation of kids with social problems, emotional problems, cognitive problems, but of course, vision problems now as well. Myopia or nearsightedness, far away being blurry, is often because of a near problem. And we now know that one of the three biggest risk factors for myopia developing are excessive screen time, not enough time outdoors, and prolonged near concentration tasks in the dark. So we're having myopia explode across the world because of screens. And I mean, there's a million, we could talk for hours about the problems of screens. Evolutionarily, our visual system was designed to guide movement and to track the horizon for the saber-tooth tiger coming at us. Now we're making these careful eye movements on screens with the brightness, the contrast, the glare, the sporadic, less organized eye movements, and it's causing a lot of stress and problems that most people don't know there are solutions for.
You know what I find really interesting about working with high performers is very often they just wake up with their phone and go to sleep with their phone. And I have to say, I've been guilty of that for
We all
many
have been,
years. I
of
just want to
course.
be super candid here. So I include myself in that category. And the only reason I stopped is because I was aware of how it affected my energy and performance. So now, if I compare and contrast a day where I consciously and intentionally start with a few seconds of sun glazing, or if it's not sunny, just natural light, and then I make sure that at least 1 hour before my expected sleep time, I'm not on my phone. It just makes a huge difference to my sleep, to my energy, to my focus, to my productivity. Can you tell us more about those so common habits that we have around our
Yes.
phone?
Absolutely. And there is science to support exactly what you've learned to do naturally, right? I mean, blue light, for instance, blue light is getting all the attention these days. And blue light is not bad for us. Blue light's actually essential for us to sustain life and to regulate mood and hormones and circadian rhythms. But that's natural blue light. That's blue light from the sun, where, like you said, first thing in the morning, you go outside, you get fresh sun into your eyes, into the windows, into your soul, and that helps set that clock, that internal clock. And then in the evening before bed, but blue light that's blasting your eyes and your brains all day long on screens, that's where the problems emerge. And we have cells in the back of our eye and our on our retina whose sole job is to respond to the sleep wake signaling and light, and that's sending the trigger to release melatonin. When those cells are always overstimulated, that suppresses the secretion. And so it makes it really hard to fall asleep at night if your brain is hyper aroused. It makes it really hard to interact with three-dimensional space and interpersonal communication because our visual system adapts to all of that stress. So, I mean, screen time is become a huge problem. I am very pro tech, and I would say my practice is the leader in technology in terms of brain training and vision therapy to help combat these problems and reroute things. But I think anything we want to do in moderation, right? And so taking breaks and disengaging the focusing system and eye coordination system and engaging in movement and allowing our brain to take a rest as well. I mean, there's such value in performance staying at your potential for longer when our brain and eyes are not taxed for longer than we need to. And vision's our dominant sensory system. It should be what's guiding and leading. And when it's not, it can allow for so much fatigue and eye strain and headache, and can allow somebody who's used to achieving at a high level almost feel like a different person as the day goes on or as screen time increases. And when we know better, we can all do so much better.
So, starting with the assumption that we do need our screens, right, to do the things that we do, to
Yes.
do our work, especially when we're a professional service provider. How can we use our screens and, meet the demands of our work while minimizing or mitigating how much damage we do to our vision?
Love that question. So, I mean, there's so many things we can do. First of all, screen wise, we should have the biggest screen possible as far away as possible. So, the bigger the screen, the farther away, the better. We should be taking vision breaks all the time. The average person blinks 15 times in a minute, and when we look at screens, it goes down to 3 times a minute, which literally causes dryness and irritation and your own tear film not to be dispersed over the front surface. So, blinking, taking breaks, having the right visual ergonomics, so having your screen set up at the right position. So, at eye level and about 15 degrees below eye level, not closer than arm's length, and adjusting the brightness and the contrast. But I'm a big proponent of what we call digital performance lenses, or glasses that we wear for screens that are therapeutic in nature, not compensatory. So they don't do the work for you. They allow your brain a better opportunity for your eyes to work together, and they help allow for performance to be optimized for longer. And it's almost like a spot if you're lifting weights. It's not doing the work for you, but it's ensuring the right habits are in place so that the visual stress associated with screens doesn't allow for the same response internally and visually. So what these are is a really high quality blue light filter, but most importantly, the right balanced magnification, which again disengages those inside muscles of the eyes responsible for clarity to allow for better flexibility and stamina within the visual system. So I mean, it honestly gives you a way to cheat to improve productivity for extended periods of time because your brain is not spending as much effort just to use and process the information that your eyes are sending it.
And we've been talking about vision specifically, but I think it would be really important to go back to basics and do a little
Yeah.
bit of definition around distinguishing between vision and eyesight, right? This is something that I had to learn the hard way, but I think it would be good.
Yeah.
Could you shed some light on distinguishing between eyesight and vision?
Would love to. So there is so much more to vision than just 20/20 eyesight. And unfortunately, most doctors and most of healthcare kind of has it all wrong about the eyes. Most doctors are solely focused on this pursuit of getting you to see the 20/20 line and the smallest letters on the letter chart. That's eyesight. But eyesight and vision, like you're talking about, they're separate entities and they really need to be treated like that. So eyesight is really how well you can see. So that's, letters on a letter chart, street signs. If you're a student, what's written on the board in the classroom. That's really a symptom. Vision, though, is far more complex. Vision is how the eyes move together and converge and track and process information, and really how we derive meaning from the world around us and then direct the appropriate action. So I really think we all need to think about eyesight as glasses, and then vision is brain, and vision problems are brain problems, and they're functional in nature. And there is a fix for these brain problems through what we specialize in, something called vision therapy, which is really a treatment designed to rewire the software of the brain to change how somebody takes in the world around them and processes visual information. If we look at eyesight as a symptom, when you go to the eye doctor and far away is a little blurrier, the normal response is a reactive model, which says, oh, here's a different or stronger pair of glasses to sharpen far away. But there's very little intention placed on the problem and understanding the root cause, which very often is the focusing system not having stamina or flexibility, or the eye coordination system being fragile, or something with near. And then the near is the problem, the distance is the symptom. So if we address the problem, then the distance symptom actually improves, and in many cases dramatically improves. So glasses prescriptions, especially for adults, should not change every year unless there's a functional eye problem or functional brain problem allowing that to happen. And you address the root cause, then your glasses prescription should be pretty stable, and it should be the weakest lenses possible that give the most improvement. And in many cases, we don't even need lenses.
Yeah, and we don't really hear that very often. We just keep on buying new glasses. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very common for folks to change their glasses every year, and it gets worse and worse and stronger prescription, right?
When we live in a society where people want a quick fix, and in some cases, like, we need to have HD eyesight, but not everybody sees the same. Not everybody should see the same, and we should be really seeking 20 happy vision rather than necessarily that HD 20/20 vision, which is the most balanced prescription, that's the weakest possible, that gives the most improvement. And again, if we're looking at the ability to see and process information as a brain problem, we know there's neuroplasticity and there's ability to train the brain at any age for any person to enhance and optimize their vision.
Mm. Could you perhaps walk us through vision therapy and whether this is a preventative measure or whether it is reactionary, or can it be both?
Great question. So I think it definitely can be both. We should look at vision therapy kind of as physical therapy for the eyes, but really for the brain through the eyes. And just like any good therapy, it's the person coming in motivated and ready to do the work to say, show me what to do to fix this rather than fix this for me.
Mm.
But it's brain training, and it's using the eyes to rewire the software of the brain to change how somebody uses vision, to change how they're processing visual information, and to establish a lot more cohesion and order from a world that is often disordered. So I would say there's kind of two main populations or two main reasons why people would benefit from vision therapy. One would be a visual developmental delay, meaning every functional skill, tracking, focusing, depth perception, eye teaming, peripheral vision, they're all skills that when every child is born, they're not in place. And then through our life experiences, we develop the ability to use our eyes together as a unit. So that's something that's learned well or not learned as well as it could be, and that's when some intervention is needed. But kids now are experiencing functional vision problems, these visual developmental delays, earlier than ever before because they're being exposed to screens and technology earlier than ever before, and being asked to read earlier than ever before they're visually ready, before they have the foundation. So that first bucket is the visual developmental delays. Then the second bucket would be acquired problems. So somebody who's had a traumatic brain injury or concussion, or somebody who has an eye turn or a lazy eye, to learn how to avoid the need for surgery, rehab after surgery, even maybe develop depth perception for the first time. And so you can really simplify it and say vision problems are either maladaptations, they're either bad habits, or they're functional skills that haven't been learned yet. And with both of those, we can reroute the neurology. And we know that the visual centers of the brain for any age can be rebooted and can be redeveloped, even if it wasn't developed to begin with.
But it's interesting, isn't it, at a societal level, how going to the gym to flex your muscles is very accepted. Yeah, eye gym is not really a thing. And the reason I say that is because I spent most of my childhood, you know, in and out of that eye doctor clinic because I had to do effectively exercise
Yeah.
to retrain my eyes. So the only reason I know about it is because I've had this accident. But most people don't really grasp the concept of eye gym.
Thank you for bringing this up. We exercise our bodies, we exercise our minds, yet for some reason we can't exercise our eyes. I mean, it makes no sense, but it's not commonplace. And
Mm.
again, with eyes more than any other part of the body, and of course I'm very biased, I'll admit that, but there is such a disconnect over structure versus function. And even myself, we are all taught in school how to intervene when there's disease and to be reactionary, but there's so little teaching on being proactive and this functional model. So, I mean, I work with lots of professional sports teams and really high performing athletes who don't have vision problems. They just want to improve or optimize certain areas of visual function and brain function, even small percentage points. But when you add all these points together, it can lead to a massive impact in terms of performance. And so really, any part of our body can be enhanced and optimized with the right treatment, with the right protocols, with the right supplements. And so many of us just kind of accept status quo and don't really challenge what we're being told, or what doctors are sharing with us, because we're so limited, so many doctors, in terms of this understanding. I mean, I was taught in school, and not too long ago, that you blow out the candles on your 8th birthday, and then poof, all of a sudden the critical period for visual development ends, and where things are, you're stuck with. And as crazy as that sounds, I mean, I would say the vast majority of doctors still practice that way and still preach that. That is from research from decades ago that was misinterpreted in terms of vision loss, not vision gained. So if you or I were to cover up one of our eyes for 6 months with an eye patch, if we took off the eye patch, it'd be a little sensitive to light, but we wouldn't have lost sight. But if you take a 6-year-old and cover up one of their eyes with an eye patch for 6 months, there literally would be eyesight lost. And so from a gaining or retraining standpoint, again, any brain at any age can improve vision and have those visual pathways reestablished or developed. But there's so many missed opportunities and misdiagnoses because we take the situation that you had when you were 3 and say, well, one eye's pointing in or out or up or down, so there's a good eye and there's a bad eye, so let's cover up the good eye so the bad eye has to work. We literally have research and science to show that that is not accurate, and that it's a 2-eyed problem manifesting on one side. So if we address it on a 2-eyed basis, so much can be opened up.
What are the most common vision impairment or vision issues that patients come to you for? Particularly, I'm thinking about people that do work on screen for
Yeah.
prolonged hours.
It's a very different world post 2020. And, a lot changed with the pandemic, but specifically screens and digital devices were catapulted into the workplace, into learning, into all aspects of life. And so I would say 100% of people that we see in my two offices in Bethesda and Annapolis, Maryland, have vision problems or symptoms that are made worse by screen engagement. And it's literally like stepping on a wound. It's making the careful, intricate eye movements that are needed that much harder to function and exacerbating the problems. So we have to be able to converge our eyes the appropriate amount. We have to be able to focus our eyes the appropriate amount. We have to be able to track our eyes the appropriate amount. And let's try something here. If you were to squeeze both of your fists like this as hard as you can, and everybody listening, try the same thing. Make a fist with each hand, squeeze as hard as you can. After like 5 seconds, your hand starts to hurt, right? But if you were to let go and squeeze and let go and squeeze, you could do this for hours. Our focusing muscles, which are the inside muscles of the eyes responsible for making things clear and keeping them clear, they're behind our pupil. So when we look at a screen, the pupil gets small because of the light, but also because the focusing muscle is engaged. When you are looking at a screen, you're literally doing this with these focusing muscles, which are circular sphincter muscles. The system is clenched. And it being clenched for longer than it should allows for strain on the system, impaired brain function, and then symptoms to emerge. So really the most common problems we're seeing, as silly as it sounds, is the visual system being out of shape because it's being asked to do things that it's not ready for. And I think the reason why I am just being so proactive at just raising awareness is that most people don't know this. We can develop the foundation in place to thrive in the digital world that we're in. But for most people, it requires vision therapy, vision training, reestablishing function with these systems and improving stamina, flexibility, strength, and integration of all of this into life. And especially for those that are juggling a lot cognitively, physically, and visually, the ceiling should be that much higher. And for many, it just continues to drop the longer that we're looking at screens.
I think it's quite amazing how we forget that what we do is through our eyes when we work in an office for hours. And the reason I'm saying that is when I do interventions for burnout or chronic anxiety, one of the tools that I use is actually eye lateral movement, because typically I work with clients that are so time poor. What they can give me, if anything, is 10 seconds. And that's a big ask, right? Okay, I'm going to negotiate to 20 and we're going to do a bit of eye lateral movement. And so all I get to do with them is to just really move their focal point to being peripheral as opposed to just staring at the screen. And they notice that this big wave of anxiety and this big stress wave actually starts to go down, and especially if you associate eye lateral movement with breath work, it's super powerful. I was wondering, well, first of all, can you give us your expertise on that and tell us more about little things that we can do with the minimum amount of time in between Zoom or Teams meeting?
Absolutely. And I knew I loved you when we first connected, but hearing the importance you place on vision, I mean, that's just doubling down on this. So I would urge, I mean, you're visually enhancing life and the work that you're doing with your clients. But a lot of what you're doing is x-axis work. So across midline, to me, life takes place on the z-axis, which is convergence and focusing. And let's talk about a few exercises everybody can start doing as well that would not only work on eye movement control or tracking, but also eye coordination and focusing, where we can really do we can take a cross-training approach to be able to allow this to really start to establish better function. And we also offer a program called ScreenFit, which is literally all exercises that don't require equipment that can be done in between Zoom calls, in the bathroom, at a stoplight, so that we're all doing more mindful work. And I think the equivalent of what we're going to do here with a few exercises and also ScreenFit is it's kind of like doing body weight work at home instead of going to the gym and working with a trainer, right? You get in better shape if you're working with a trainer with weights and cardio and flexibility and strength and stamina. but not everybody has access to that, and not everybody has the time for that. So at least doing the body weight work at home, you can improve movement and equilibrium and overall just happiness. So let's do a top 3 activities. So
Let's
everybody
do
who's
it.
listening, if you can, grab a pen or pencil, a very expensive piece of equipment here. So what we'll do is cover up one eye with your hand, and then with the other hand, take your pen or pencil and put it straight ahead at arm's length. And so what you're going to do is you're going to look at that pen or pencil, make it as clear as you can, and then slowly bring it towards you down your midline until it gets a little blurry. And then once it gets a little blurry, so you're bringing it all the way as close as you can to your eye. Once it gets a little blurry, stop. And then try and really look at it harder, look more focally, try and lock in that focusing system to make it a little bit clearer. Hold it for 5 seconds, and then look as far out into the distance as you can for 5 seconds. And then back at the pen for 5 seconds, and then back in the distance. So you're kind of grossly stimulating and relaxing the focusing muscle. This is kind of like push-ups for your focusing system. You want to do it the same amount of time right eye as you would do it with the left eye. And most people will notice that near point where it starts to become a little hard, it's going to be at a different distance from your body with one of your eyes and with your other, which means you literally have better stamina on one side than you do on the other. And so when we're looking at any plane at any distance, so often there's this kind of tug of war, this rivalry between how our brain is using our eyes, because we've developed a maladaptation so that we don't have to use both eyes at both distance because it's too hard. So this is the type of thing, the more you do this, the closer that pen will be, so that eventually you can hold it, a centimeter from your face, it's clear. You can look as far out as you can, it's clear. And you can maintain that, which this, more so than any other exercise, would directly correlate with the need for reading glasses or the desire to grab over-the-counter readers to do the work for you. Anyone can prolong the need for reading glasses. Anyone can do work so that you don't need as much help in terms of magnification. But again, like you shared, the quick fix is, well, let's just grab the Band-Aid approach, or let's take the pill rather than doing the work to avoid the need for that. So
Okay, so the measure of success and progression here, if I understood correctly, is to be able to hold it as close as possible without having it blurred.
without having blurred, and then to be able to throw it out and bring it back, and throw it out and bring it back at will, and to keep it clear as well. So we may notice, if you do this every day, maybe it moves half a millimeter closer, but that compounded over time leads to a big distance or a big change in terms of your ability to explore near space and make things clear up close for longer.
And is this exercise safe for somebody that's had laser surgery or eye muscle surgery, like myself, for example?
Safe for anybody and everybody.
Okay.
Nothing wrong can happen here. I would say the one potential challenge, and this would be a positive, would be so often if our eyes aren't working well together as a team, our brain learns to suppress or ignore sensory input from one of the eyes, so that you stop using it. And that impacts our depth perception and is a conscious decision at an unconscious level over which eye to use. So this will waken up, one of the eyes if it is being ignored. So it may notice that, okay, things are a little more unstable because you were shutting that off, but that's even more of an indication. Let's find somebody board certified in vision therapy and actually fix this. But I would say for anybody, there's no harm because it's being controlled with doing it one eye at a time. Okay. Now, I think the next piece of what we could do would be, with both eyes open, to take that pen and put it at midline and make sure you see one clear image the whole time. And then you're going to slowly bring it towards you, converging your eyes. And it should be effortless to our nose where we can see one all the way in. For most people, there gets to be a point where it gets hard, it gets uncomfortable. You see two pens, one of the eyes drifts in or out or up or down. This is looking at the near point of convergence. And a convergence insufficiency, or the inability to converge both eyes effortlessly to the nose, is so common these days now that screens are such a big part of our life. The National Institutes of Health, which is a mile from my office in Bethesda, says that 20% of the population has a convergence insufficiency. I think the number is much higher, but that's still a high percentage. And
And
really,
you would know that because you can't hold the pen to your
you
nose.
can't see one single clear pen the whole time as it's coming all the way in.
And the optimal vision would be able to get it all the way to the pen while looking at it, right?
So the textbooks say what's considered normal would be 2 inches from the nose is the break point, and then an inch back is where you can recover. But anyone who's had children or has access to a baby around at 6 months of age, that's when convergence to the nose is normalized. Whereas babies are putting food in their mouth and exploring with toys, we should be able to smoothly, effortlessly control and converge our eyes that early in life. And then the
Mm.
more near stress there is, the more we're asking the system to do something it can't handle, the farther away that distance becomes. And when you start looking at this, you'll see people who, like a couple feet away, they can't converge their eyes and get them to point to the same place.
Yeah, and I just want to bring something up here, and I would love your expertise. When I do the eye lateral movement exercise with clients, sometimes some of them actually tell me, "Oh, it feels a little more than uncomfortable." I wouldn't use the word painful, but almost like a
Yeah.
icky feeling where like, oh, and they kind of want to give up and they think something bad is happening. Can you shed some light on
Yeah.
that feeling? And is that the equivalent of working a biceps in the gym?
So I think it's the equivalent of a more dynamic movement. So maybe like doing a squat,
Okay.
where, like, let's say somebody's got really strong quads and their glutes are okay, but maybe their anterior posterior chain is firing more than it should, or maybe their form is off, and so when they do a squat they notice, oh well, my knee starts to hurt or my back, because the holistic system is not working in synergy. So what you're doing with this lateral eye movement, if somebody's relying on the outside muscles of the eyes, the eye coordination system, to compensate for maybe what the inside muscles aren't doing as well as they could or should, or vice versa, it's almost raising to their awareness where the challenges are. So I would
Mm,
definitely look at their pupils as they're doing it. It should be constricted and at the same distance and steady. We should see smooth, fluid eye movements, no overshoots or undershoots. You shouldn't see any head or body movements if who you're working with is older than 7 years old. That's when we learn how to dissociate eye from head movements naturally. But
mm,
you're asking them to really take their attention and reposition it in space. And I look at any change in eye movement as a change in attention, whether it's voluntary or involuntary. So if you can't control your eyes, you can't control your attention the same way that you would. And to even double down on that, our ability for our the ability for our brain to stay focused is intimately related to our ability for our eyes to stay focused. And we see so many people misdiagnosed with ADD, ADHD, or dyslexia, when, in my opinion, those are incomplete diagnoses until functional vision problems that cause the exact same symptoms and behaviors are ruled out first. And it's
mm.
not like there's a blood test that can say, oh, yes, you have ADHD. It's based off of the behavior profile and what you notice. And, somebody can't focus and use their eyes efficiently. They're not going to be able to use their mind the way that they should if that was not in place.
Mm. And there is the release of neurotransmitter as well, like acetylcholine, depending on how we use our vision. So if we're constantly in that focal point and focus, 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 yeah, it's awesome if you're a hunter and you're about to go and shoot the prey. But
Right.
if what you're doing all day long is staring at that small mailbox or that small point, no wonder you're getting
Yeah.
stressed out, right? Can
I
you tell
mean,
us more?
sure. I mean, that hunter, they're not looking in the scope for 8 hours straight, right? Like they're finding something and then they're looking away and coming back. So our ability for our central and our peripheral visual processing to kind of work in synergy, that is when the visual system is operating the way it's supposed to. When
Mm,
we're under stress and the autonomic nervous system is the fight or flight response is tapped into, what happens visually is our pupils widen and we get this tunnel vision effect.
yes.
And then that exacerbates the problem. And so, the people who are driving on a bridge and all of a sudden have a panic attack because they're aware of the periphery that they were trying to collapse, or the person who's not trusting what they're seeing and having difficulty stepping onto a moving escalator or up and down a curb, they're not trusting what they're seeing. And so often periphery and engaging periphery and kind of looking soft and disengaging is really the key to allowing better balance. And again, most of the people you work with, they are powered in onto this screen or this little device at arm's length all day long.
Yeah.
And even just disengaging. And I always tell my patients, drink a ton of fluids so that you have to get up and go to the bathroom. Set a timer on your phone or on the screen, so not more than 20 minutes without taking a break for 20 seconds and looking 20 feet away. But also relying on human interaction, which has been so lost. I mean, we need to have a digital detox for so many aspects of life, but especially for our visual system to not continue down this downward spiral of getting worse as we age.
And the reality is, once we are intentional and aware, taking a 20-second break every 20 minutes to look at something 20 feet away is really accessible.
It's really okay, right? Like
It's really okay. You
anybody.
can continue to think, right? We're not asking you to stop thinking. And in fact, you'll probably have better ideas when you're looking at something 20 feet away.
Absolutely. You'll have
Yeah.
better productivity. You'll probably, I have do some of my best visionary work when I'm not in the moment, right? Like when you can actually sit back and look into the horizon, or if you're lucky enough to be at a beach to just kind of let go and access the cortical areas of your brain that we are not even tapping into when we're in this go, go, go reactive model and mindset all day long.
And if you know about the importance of peripheral vision, you can be very intentional whenever you have access to a place that's not the office. So, for instance, my partner and I, what we do when we travel is when we're looking at a beautiful landscape. We did that when we were in South Africa. We were looking at the mountains, and we actually sat next to each other and just took the furthest point to the left and scanned every single peak of the way to the right without moving our heads, right? It was very much just a very intentional, almost like a game, and you can have a little competition. Of course, with me, most things turn like a competition. But how you can scan without moving your head, and you can be very intentional, even just looking at clouds or looking at the horizon or looking at the sea and just scanning waves.
Yeah.
I systematically do that when I'm in nature, or looking at fractals on leaves as well, scanning in that top of the tree. And it just makes you appreciate how three-dimensional life is. And I think that there are small habits that we can just insert that don't actually cost time.
And it forces you to be present and to be in the moment, right? And to look at the beauty that's around you, that so often we get this myopic tunnel vision viewpoint where we don't even recognize who's even in our surroundings. Can I give another exercise specifically
I would
for
love
periphery?
to. Yes, third time lucky.
Love it. So I call this one peripheral pointing.
Okay.
So I would say let's start with one eye at a time, but it can be done with both eyes. So what you want to do is cover up one eye, find something like across the room, at least 10 feet away. So for me, I'm going to look at a light switch, and you're going to make sure your eye is pointing at the light switch the entire time and not moving away from it.
Does it need to be straight, or can it be on a corner of the room?
I would say let's do it straight, but it really can be done anywhere.
Okay.
And for those people doing this who are like, wow, I can't even keep my eye on the light switch without it darting away, that's red flag. We got a problem that we got to fix. But what you're going to do is don't look away from that light switch, but then with your peripheral vision, notice something else in the room away from that midline. So for me, I'm going to notice the door handle. And what I want everyone to do is don't look away from where your eye is pointing, but then take your finger and point to that object in the periphery that you localize, for me, the door handle, and then kind of paint almost in the periphery where you think it is. And then when you're ready, move your eye over to where that position was and see how close you were. You may notice you're a little bit too high, too low, too left, too right. If you're right on it, great. Then bring your hand back down and then find something farther out in the periphery. And
that's
so what
hard.
you really, it's hard to do. And what most people notice is, like, even when you're walking, if you're actively trying to engage periphery, you can see the mailbox to the side, you can see the car to this side, but it's really hard to see both simultaneously. And these are active processes that we can literally attach functional MRIs to a brain in a vision therapy setting and highlight the areas of the brain being activated, but we can enhance peripheral awareness, and we can allow for better central peripheral integration, which then improves sense of self in space, improves depth perception, and in many cases can even eliminate dizziness and vertigo and nausea that so many people experience on a screen when they're not in motion.
Migraine as well. Migraine.
Absolutely. So many migraines have a visual component that triggers the migraine. And if we can establish the visual foundation to not have that trigger, your migraines are less often or less substantial. And I would honestly say a lot of migraines or vestibular migraines are just labels describing, hypersensitivity in the brain, but there's a root cause that triggers them that can be decreased or eliminated. And then you're technically providing treatment for a migraine, which most people would say doesn't exist.
Right. And you're not actually really looking into the root cause. You're just once again putting band-aids and probably going to make the next migraine worse because you haven't changed behavior or habits around the real reason why the migraine happened in the first place.
100%.
Now, we've covered things that we can do practically. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about nutrition as well. I love to be conscious about including things like carrots, blueberry, omegas into my diet because I have this awareness of what has happened to me. But I would love your expertise and guidance on whether or not this are myth. Is this reality? Are there superfood when it comes to our eyes?
So most people think carrots are like the number one food for the eyes. And although carrots aren't bad for the eyes, that's from a story back around World War II that was kind of fabricated and given inaccurate attention. I would say there's lots of other foods that are even better for the eyes. So to me, the number one most important supplement for eye health and brain health are omega-3 fatty acids. And from a brain function standpoint, but even from a tear film standpoint, to allow your tears to be viscous and on your eyes for longer as a protective barrier, that makes the outer layer of the tear film be a little bit more thicker and protective. But really the best stuff for the eyes are kind of dark green leafy vegetables. So like kale, spinach, collard greens, they have something in there called zeaxanthin and lutein, which are carotenoids, which means they help protect the retina, the back of the eye, from harmful UV light. And those are great. Antioxidants are fantastic for the eyes, and they can often help decrease the risk of macular degeneration or cataract formation. So that could be, something rich with vitamins A, C, and E. Lots of fruits have those. Could be even supplements with antioxidants. Eggs are fantastic, especially the yolk. And specifically for the eyes, the lutein that's in the yolk, that's great for the macula, the sweet spot of our eyesight, and also for the choline that's in there, which is great for cognition. Omega-3s, I think our brain very often needs consistent high doses of those to allow for optimized function. And so, you can find these in cold water fish like salmon, sardines, anchovies, mackerel, halibut, but supplements, I think, significantly raise the bar in terms of giving your brain high doses of what it needs to heal and to function. And more so than any other supplement, omega supplements, the quality matters more than anything else. We got to get really high quality tested omega supplements that are wonderful. So green leafy vegetables, colorful fruit, omegas, and we could go over a lot, but those are the big hitters.
Awesome. And then when it comes to technological hack, I love to use blue blocking glasses at night. I also love to do red light. I actually have my panel next to my recording session because then when I've done a lot of screen, it's very bright, very red. But I actually like the feeling, especially before bed or around sunset time, if I can't get outside around that time. Can you tell us more about how you feel about those strategies?
Absolutely. So red light, the nerdy word for that is photobiomodulation, which is
I'll turn it on for anyone interested, but it's gonna get really
oh, there
intense.
you go. We should have filmed the whole time like that.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So
I
red
just
light,
wanted to say I literally have it next to me. That's how much I love it,
that's amazing. So that helps power up the mitochondria. and kind of jumpstart their engines to really create this huge amount of energy in the cells to be able to have them, function at their potential. Our largest percentage of mitochondria are in our eyes, and so much of just functional disease and systemic disease is from mitochondrial dysfunction. So you can't really get too much red light. And we also do something called syntonics, or kind of light therapy in my office, where we have specific protocols for specific populations where they'll look into a machine, let's say, to activate sympathetic function. And then we're going through a vision therapy session. And then at the end, we're doing parasympathetic to kind of calm the system. We work with a lot of people with ADD, ADHD, or even on the autism spectrum, where we're literally using light to tap into areas of the brain that have been bypassed or suppressed. And then we even give our patients different goggles with different colored wavelengths to wear at home and to go outside and spend 2 hours outside playing, but put these glasses on, and it's going to change how your brain is processing light through the visual system. So there's a ton of power there. Blue light, I think, has gotten a ton of attention, and a lot of my colleagues try and bash blue light, saying there's not science to say that blue light helps eliminate retinal disease. Okay, but blue light helps a lot of other stuff as well. It helps regulate blocking blue light helps regulate our circadian rhythm, helps allow for hormone and mood regulation. And again, I think blue light, especially in the evening, is really important to block from screens. But I'm a big proponent of this digital performance lens that we offer, which again allows for magnification with the blue light, which can really help. Blue light, be careful for anybody who buys blue light glasses. You could buy something on Amazon that says it blocks 433 nanometers, and technically it could be called a blue light lens or blue light protection lens. But we want ones that block the largest range of blue light. So really the only ones that block 100% of blue light would be those lenses that are red, orange, amber, yellow, that block literally all the bad stuff and allow the good stuff in.
Very hard to watch a movie with those. If you watch
Yes.
your favorite classic, you're gonna have a shock. I've tried it. Everything
It,
looks like it's Dracula.
it throws everything off. So, and because of that, practically, I usually recommend those only for, like, if you need to be on your computer or your phone, your tablet while you're in
Yeah.
bed. But in general, we sell lenses that have 70% blockage. So they're still clear. You don't have your friends and colleagues, making judgment about you because of what you're wearing, but it blocks a large portion that still is more balanced for the brain. And so you're wearing those during the daytime, and then you're wearing the colorful ones at nighttime, but not during your favorite show. Then you're putting on ones that are the 70%, so you can still see everybody looking the same that you remember them as.
I love to use those when I travel too, to block out and to optimize my circadian rhythm and to
Yeah,
minimize
yeah,
jet lags. I think that's super important. So
absolutely.
much junk light in the airport and the planes. So, yeah, that's a go-to.
And in malls and grocery stores and all these fluorescent
Yeah.
lights that are just blasting I mean, it's crazy when you recognize what little small hacks can do for just happiness and even overall health, and they compound over time. The more of these
They
you
really
do for
do.
longer, the happier and healthier you're going to be.
I have learned so much and thoroughly enjoyed recording this show with you. I will make sure to add your ScreenFit program in the show note, and I will invite our listener to test it out and to check it out. And is there anything else that you would like our listener to know about to get more familiar with your world?
This has been so fun. Thank you so much for having me on. I would love everyone to listen, who's listening to this, to really think about putting their vision first. So if you have a headache, and you might go see a neurologist, or if if you have a child or are a child and there's squirmy in classroom, you may go see, a psychiatrist or a learning specialist, or if you're motion sick, you may see an ENT. But with almost any symptom, you need to consider that vision really could be a part of that problem. So that's why I really advocate putting your vision first, and that goes way beyond just going to your eye doctor and seeing if you need glasses. Everyone should be saying to their eye doctor, okay, thank you for telling me about my eyesight, but what about my vision?
Mhm. Dr. Appelbaum, thank you. And I can't wait to continue this conversation during a marathon and
Yeah.
or at your clinic in
Yes.
DC.
Love it.
Thank
Love it. It
you.
would be an honor.
Take care.
You as well.
If you are interested in exploring vision training for yourself, check out ScreenFit. That is the revolutionary at home program that you can start today. And don't forget, you can also use your exclusive discount code Charlène for a special offer at checkout. Links and detail are in the show notes. I hope that you have enjoyed today's conversation and that it has inspired you and motivated you to look after your eyes one day at a time. Thank you and see you next Wednesday.